All right. Well, that was an adventure. Hello, my name is Oscar Fire, and I just finished reading the Gypsy Morph. Now, the unfortunate thing is that I actually haven't edited my review for the Elves of Sintra yet, so these are all going to be kind of coming out in not all at once, but they're going to be kind of coming out like all at the roughly the same time, and it's going to look kind of weird before this video comes out, but it's whatever. But yeah, I just finished the Gypsy Morph, and I'm going to tell you right now, that was a lot more disappointing than I remembered. I actually thought when I started reading the book that when I said in the review for the Elves of Sintra that I'm like, I actually really like the second book, and I feel like it might actually be my favorite. When I remember that the third book was my favorite, I'm like, and then when I started this book, I'm like, no, this is a really strong start. I think I'm gonna like this book more. And then I got to the midway point of the book, and it just fell apart. It was actually quite astonishing how badly the Gypsy Morph fell apart as a narrative. I feel like I'm overstating it when I phrase it like that, but at the same time, like, no, I genuinely did not like this book. Or did not like the book, but I genuinely thought the book was way, way worse than I remember. Even to the point where I actually scribbled down notes that I'm gonna... Okay, my camera didn't even focus on that one because of the bright light. But the point where I actually wrote down notes about everything I want to talk about because there was so much to talk about that I actually, like I'm going to talk about a lot for this video, for the next video where I talk about the series as a whole, and for another video that I'm planning on doing that I'm not going to spoil the idea of until the next video. But yeah, so let's get started. So first things first, yes, I really enjoyed the book in the first half. I quite legitimately enjoyed this book in like the first half, somewhere in that ballpark. Because I thought it was really well paced. I thought it had really good tension. I thought it was like, really, I thought it had a really good build up. And I was trying to remember, of course, what I had read, 16, 17 years ago whenever I read it. And I was trying to remember all those details, and I say 16? Yeah, 16, would have been about 2008. 2008, maybe 2009. Either way, 15, 16 years ago. And I was trying to remember the fine details, because I remember the general plot, I remember how things generally went, but I didn't remember how everything actually went down specifically. So a lot of this book was a surprise to me again. For example, I totally forgot that Tragan the Tracker, who is Cimmerlin's beau, was in fact another demon infiltrator among the elves. That was something I totally forgot about, and that plot twist actually completely surprised me again. And it was like, whoa, this is actually great writing, and just the general feel and the sense of things where there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of worry, a lot of, what's the word I'm thinking of? A lot of tension, I guess, it's not quite the word. I think there's another more specific word that means similar to tension, but not quite the word I'm looking for. But there's a lot of tension in the first half of the book. It's like, how are they going to get out of this? How are they going to succeed? How are they going to survive? And then Arborlon gets sealed in the Loden, and everything kind of sort of starts to fall apart. Because Arborlon gets sealed in the Loden, right? And the first thing I've noticed is that the king, Arison Belarus, finally, freed from the influence of demons, of demons trying, at his ear, in the form of Old Kulf, of course. No, I won't. I will bring this up first. By the way, before I got onto that, remember how in the last review I complained about how Kirison was a complete idiot for seeing Kulf in the cave on Mount Rainier and immediately going, wow, it's Kulf, and not going, wow, something's wrong, I better have my defenses up. As it turns out, Cimmerlin did the exact same thing. His far more experienced and intelligent sister, Cimmerlin, did the exact same thing. And my immediate reaction is that, no, they're not going to both be idiots. And I know why it was written that way. It was written that way so that the conversation could happen in the cave, and Cole could let slip that, A, the Elfstones are a weapon, and B, that there is another, and leave the little hint that there's another demon in Arborlon. I feel like, though, that could have been written differently without handing, handing his two characters the idiot ball, but literally beating them over the head with the idiot bat. Not even a stick, it's an idiot bat. He literally beats both Simmerlin and Kirsten over the head with the idiot bat, just so that, so that this information could be revealed. And that is plot contrivance out the wazoo. That was right at the very beginning. But then everything was fine after that. Everything was okay, Logan Tom traveling to the Sintra and all that, and the ghosts and everything, finding Hawk again. That was all great. That was all perfectly fine, all perfectly all paced, and everything. And then Arborlon gets sealed in the Loden, and the elves, instead of like, I understand they were trying to like buy time for the Loden to get away, because the demon army's literally right there on the slopes, and they are literally about to blunder, not blunder, but they are literally about to attack. They're ready to attack. They're ready to ensure that the Loden is under their control, so they can take and release the elves at their leisure, right? So, it's understandable that they're going to leave a force to delay the demons, and I understand that the plan to leave the force to delay the demons is on short notice. And furthermore, even though the book never brings this up, I understand that the elves, having been in hiding for the past 6,000, 10,000 years, whatever it is, probably have not engaged in almost anything resembling warfare in millennia. I understand all this, but at the same time, what was their plan? What was their plan? Because the only thing they managed to do is, okay, first of all, they get cut off and all this stuff, right? But it's like they make no actual plan to have a delaying action, and then to have part of their force engage in a delaying action, and then another part of their force escort Kirsten out of the Sintra, whether it's by hot air balloon or by the Ventra AV, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. The point is that they didn't make a plan. The elves just start fighting for some reason, and they start engaging in a pitched battle, and they get completely overrun and completely slaughtered. Arisen Belarus is dead. All these people are dying. Everyone's dying everywhere, and it's like the person, the military historian in me immediately looks at this and just goes, "Are these people dumb? Do they not know that they needed to be more mobile? Did they not pay attention at all to human history at all, period?" I mean, I can kind of see that, to be fair. But it doesn't change the fact that when an army doesn't have sufficient mobility, that army tends to get defeated. Armies that get bogged down tend to get defeated. And guess what happened? Their army got surrounded and almost completely destroyed. Granted, it's only an army of about 1,000, but that doesn't change the fact that it's why weren't they on the move? Why didn't they have 500 or 600 of their number defending against the demon onslaught, while another 300-400 of them, retreat with Kirsten? That would make a lot more sense, and there would be a lot more survivors and a lot less dead people. It felt so stupid. It felt so dumb. Because it was just violence, and it was just violence and loss for its own sake, rather than what felt like a logical outcome. And it really bothered me. It really, really bothered me. It was frustrating to read, in fact. It was just they just kind of blundered into this fight without anything resembling a plan. And that kind of baffled me a little bit, because it's shouldn't the elves be smarter than this? I know they're not Tolkienian elves, but surely they should be smarter than that. Let me take a look here. Let me take a look here at these. Let's see. All right, so I think there's a couple of other notes about this book specifically. I'm going to save some of it for the next video. A, so it doesn't turn into another 30-40 minute video, and also because a lot of the issues I actually have are more overarching narrative issues with the whole trilogy. So another problem I had is that a lot of people, just leading on from the previous one, a lot of people die. Terry engages in just like a lot of high casualty kind of, like events, basically, you know. All the elven trackers that Cymberlin works with, you know, the squad that she leaves Arborlon with, and her squad from before, with like the elven tracker Praxia and whatever, Rustlin something else, Q something. You know, it's like, you know, like they all die. Like all of them die. And then among the ghosts, Fix-It and Chalk are just kind of killed off, and it's just lots of people die. And it's like there's not that much hope to be found, and I found that extremely frustrating from a narrative perspective, because I feel like in a lot of ways this book is the one where, okay, everything's dark and depressing in book 1 and 2. Book 3 is where things should really kind of like, you know, it's like everything's down here. It's what it kind of should start bumping. It should bump up a little, you know. And it doesn't have to bump all the way up, you know, it starts up here, dives to here. It can bump up to here, you know, that's fine. It's fine. It doesn't have to go all the way back up. But it should be about here. But it kind of goes, and just kind of hovers really low on the positivity meter. And I found that very frustrating, because it makes the book a bit of a slog after a point, because it's like, you know, it's like they want things to kind of start like getting better. And realistically, they don't, except for a point I'm going to bring up at the end. They really don't, and it feels very, it's a real drag. It's a real drag emotionally, and it's very frustrating. And I didn't like it. I know on some level, and I'll bring this up in the next video as well, I know on some level this is the Tolkienian fan in me, you know, the person who literally has the Lord of the Rings right here, you know. First, you know, at the forefront of this bookshelf behind me. And I understand that that's part of it, but it doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of unnecessary death, and a lot of unnecessary, like, scattering and splitting. I didn't really bring up Catalia, I think, in the last book, or when I was talking about the last book. But Catalia is the girl who is partially mutated into a lizard. And she ends up joining the ghosts, kind of by accident, because the ghosts are somewhat prejudiced against the freaks, against the mutants of the new, you know, this new world. And it results actually realistically in a really good character arc. One of my favorite character arc in the entire book, where Panther, the 16-year-old black boy of the ghosts, you know, one of their fighters. You know, he's tough, he's brash, but he's strong. But you know, he's tough, but he's strong, but he's also brash, and he's kind of rude, and he's very, very prejudiced against freaks. And Catalia changes his perspective entirely, because she's a tough girl, she's smart, and she's clever, and she does things he could never have imagined, not just as a girl, but as a freak. And it completely changes his perspective. And I thought that was such a great storyline. But what ends up happening is that Cat starts to transform again and fully transform into a lizard, and she leaves. She leaves of her own volition. And Panther goes out to follow her with Cheney, the dog, in tow. And when he finds her, he tries to persuade her to come back, and she doesn't. And he decides to instead travel with her into a world that's about to be obliterated by nukes. And I'm sure they survive. The implication is that they survive based on the way Terry writes it. But I thought that was so aggravating, because, you know, the ghosts lose multiple members of their family by the end of the adventure. And it's like, why? You know, why? You know, in addition to the fact that Chalk, who never even gets any characterization, gets killed by the Klee, the demon, and Fix-It dies sacrificing himself accidentally. He never really intended to sacrifice himself, but he dies accidentally, sacrificing himself to get the bridge blown over the Columbia. And it was funny, because I decided to look up on Google Maps, or Google Earth, really, looking at like where these locations were, and I think I figured out where where most of the events of the book actually occurred. What was I saying? You know, but then Panther leaves as well, because he's following Cat, and it's like, this is what I was talking about just now, where it's like, okay, everything, things have to kind of come back up, like let's persuade Kat to return to the caravan, and she doesn't, and they just set off on their own, and it makes my brain and my heart a little bit hurt, because it's like, no, bring them back together. Convince her that she doesn't need to be separated apart, I understand that, she explains also that she wants to kind of be free after being a slave, possibly a sex slave, for, most of her teenage life. And I fully understand that she wants to be free, but it's like, no, together, bring them together, instead of leaving them to be out in the middle of a world that's going to go through a nuclear winter. Why would you do this, Terry? Did you even consider the implications of this? Clearly he didn't. And it's just like, it just frustrated me to no end, because it's like, no, bring them all together. Let them be a family. They already lost 2. Why do they have to lose a 3rd and their dog? And, and a 5th who technically, or I guess a 4th. Because I counted the dog separately. And the 4th, though, who became part of their family through her skill and her knowledge and her ability. It just frustrated the hell out of me. I just thought it was so frustrating. And I think part of the problem is that the end of the book feels very rushed. The last half of the Gypsy Morph feels super rushed. There's not enough time spent with different characters and their reaction to events. Like, this book easily needed another 50 or so pages to just kind of flesh out, like, characters' mentality and give them a little chance to breathe. Because once, like, Arberlon is in the Loden and Kirsten is brought back to the camp, everything just kind of starts going bam, 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 bam. Like, everything just kind of starts happening, everything everywhere all at once. Why did I say that? And it was kind of very frustrating to read. Because, like, for example, right, I mentioned earlier that Tragan, of course, was a demon infiltrator. But here's the thing, Tragan was also, Simmerlin's lover. So that means that literally she's been sleeping with evil for several years. She's been in bed with the enemy for several years. The enemy has definitely been doing things to her, defiling her, one might say, for several years. And we never get a sense of how this impacts her mentally. Because I honestly think that if a little bit of that had been included, it would have made her falling in love with Logan Tom, like, kind of suddenly and unexpectedly, maybe a little more impactful instead of kind of random and unexpected. We don't get into Hawk's mind very much, With one moment he is, he's unsure of himself, and the next thing he's, next thing you know, he's at the final battle, he is opening up the earth and swallowing 5,000 or 6,000 once-men into the earth and destroying Findogask's army. And I, once again, am like, well, where did this come from? Why does he suddenly have Deus Ex Machina powers that saves everyone? I thought that was very irritating. If we had more of a sense of him, like, building up the confidence and understanding of his magic, so that when he finally does it, it's a result of, character development, I think that would have been so much better, so much more interesting. But that's not how it turned out, and I was just very frustrated by that. And speaking of the final battle is also very underwhelming. The battle at the bridge was okay because it had because it was a little bit quick, a little bit over a little bit too quickly. I thought it was very silly actually when Fix-It died, because basically they set charges on the bridge to blow it, right? So that the once-men couldn't cross and they have to ford the river at another point or find another bridge over, like, say, Portland or something, right? And gosh, what was I saying? And what ends up happening is that basically, like, no one's listening to Fix-It, because Fix-It, when they're setting the charges, says they should be using a wireless signal to set off the charges and not, like, the physical wired signal they were going to use to set off the charges. And immediately the verisimilitude is just completely broken for me, because it's like, no. What? First of all, why would wireless technology be more reliable than wired technology? That is literally completely in opposition to everything we understand about the internet and wireless wavelengths and everything. Okay, having a physical wire connecting to things is better. It's much more reliable. There's a reason that I almost always only do gaming on my desktop computer, for example. A, because I don't have a gaming laptop, but B, because wireless signals are unreliable. But Terry seems to think that wireless signals are more reliable than wired signals, and comes up with this contrivance where a piece of dirt has gotten between the contacts on the wires for the charges, and Fixit has to clear it. And it's like, you do not understand how technology works, do you, Terry? You don't understand what kinds of technology are more reliable than others. At the end of the day, things with direct physical connections are probably going to last longer than things that are reliant on an antenna or whatever, and whatnot. It's like no, it's less prone to failure, not more prone to failure. But let's assume for a second that Fixit is correct. Why did nobody listen to Fixit? It's like Logan Tom knows that Fixit knows his stuff. So wouldn't Logan Tom vouch for Fixit helping to lay out the defenses on the bridge? It all doesn't really fit together, because it's all very silly. Because Logan Tom is the one in charge of the defenses anyway. So I don't quite get why it's like why that's a thing. It's literally just contrived so that Fixit can die, basically, and it feels really, really dumb and really bad. But getting back to the final battle, is, once again, it's really short. It's really underwhelming, and it's really underwhelming in most part because it's like because Terry doesn't give a strong sense of how their defenses are set up. He gives like a basic description, but you don't get the sense of when they're getting overrun, why they're falling back, how they're falling back, how many people they actually had defending. It was only about 200, I think, but I'm kind of being vague. But he doesn't give like a strong sense of the battle. Like the battles I've praised in like previous series, Heritage and Elfstones and everything. Some really good battles in there, even if the tactics aren't always up to snuff. The overall battles are usually fine. But the last battle is just kind of like chaotic, messy, not very well described. And then Hawk comes out of nowhere and suddenly has the confidence to just open up rifts in the earth that swallows up 5,000 once men. And it's like my brain explodes, because it's like I don't understand why this battle feels so cheap, why he wrote it so cheaply. And it was very frustrating. Once again, it was very frustrating because it felt like an anticlimax instead of a climax, and it was a very poor way to end the threat of the demon army. I think Findo Gask's death was fine, though. I think that Logan Tom charging in to confront Findo Gask and almost getting overwhelmed, and Simmerlin figures out how to use the blue Elfstones, and by their powers combined, they managed to successfully, defeat the only demon that Nest Freemark and John Ross couldn't defeat, 80 years earlier. I thought that was okay. And I mean, the end of it is okay, except I'd save that for the next video, actually. Because you know what? It's already been 25 minutes almost. So you know what? Yes, I will save the next video, because a lot of this is all kind of more broader trilogy things to talk about. So I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I did. That sounds mean, but it's also true. I was super disappointed by the Gypsy Morph. I feel like it was a very underwhelming way to conclude the trilogy, and it needed to be written. It needed to be longer, and it needed to be written better. That's just the simple fact of it. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And until next time, which will probably be in a few days, everybody,